and humanity will benefit as well. We've already talked about the need for electrifying transportation. It's not a question of using alternative fuels in our cars. It's a question of what is the alternative to the automobile. Now, talks like this always end with a mandatory message of hope. So I have to tell you that, in fact, there is no hope for business as usual, for a soft landing. We have to get ready for hard times. And I think it's important that we make it okay to say this to each other, to speak this message and to hear this message. In ordinary parlance, in ordinary social discourse, it's simply not all right to say that, well, we may be headed for hard times. We always have to assume that the future will be brighter and the path of growth stretches out ahead of us. But that's simply not true. And if we're preparing ourselves in every possible way for a future that can't exist, how can we possibly continue to live in this world? We have to, at some point, make our expectations meet reality. Reality consists of the limits of the natural world, and we must learn to live within those limits. Since we've been living for decades outside those limits, the process of coming back to living within them is going to be difficult. It's going to take some work, and there are going to be some hard times. Guess what? There have been hard times before, and human beings have survived them. I treasure the opportunities I've had to spend time with people who've lived through the Great Depression, World War II, and who can talk about hard times and the kinds of sacrifices that were necessary. That's another word that we don't like in the modern world, sacrifice. We don't like to think that we'll actually have to give anything up to get something better in the future. It's always going to be easy and easier. But in fact, a sacrifice is something that builds moral character. And if modern societies are lacking in moral character, I would suggest it's because we have an attitude of getting something for nothing and the expectation drilled into us by advertising that that's possible and necessary. In fact, I think that the times stretching ahead of us will call upon the very highest and best of human nature, of human character. And if we're willing to meet that challenge, we could end up looking back on this period 100 years from now as the great shining moment of our existence, when we finally lived up to our potential and promise as human beings. We still have language going for us, after all. We don't have to evolve new genes in order to meet these challenges. All we have to do is change our consciousness, our expectations, and our behavior, and we can do that extraordinarily rapidly. Advertising, public relations, and propaganda have demonstrated over and over the power of language and communication to reshape society. Well, we need to reshape society over the course of the next few decades, and communication, talking to one another, persuading one another is going to be a very large part of that societal change. We need, I think, to emphasize to one another the things that maybe aren't at peak, some of the things that we've actually had to give up in order to get some of the goodies of modern industrial society, things like community, personal autonomy, satisfaction from honest work well done, intergenerational solidarity. These are the kinds of things that actually make people happy. Having lots of stuff does not necessarily make us happy. And in fact, looking at self-reported levels of happiness and levels of energy consumption, we see that there's very little correlation. In places in the world where people don't have enough energy to heat their homes or cook their food, they're not very happy. But once they have that base level of energy to do those things, then there's no correlation whatsoever between energy consumption and happiness. It's more about the level of cooperation in society, the sense of contribution to the community around oneself and one's family, the sense of artistry one can invest in one's work. Those are the things that make us satisfied as human beings, and these things are not at peak. We have lots to look forward to if we're willing to develop these cultural aspects of ourselves. So finally, I would say there are lots of people and organizations already working toward relocalization, sustainability, and the energy transition. In Great Britain, there's a movement just taking off like wildfire called the Transition Town Movement, and you can find them at transitiontowns.org. In North America, there's the Relocalization Network, and many other organizations I could name. There are towns and cities that are taking this information very seriously. I'm working very closely with the city of Oakland, California. I'm on their energy, oil independent Oakland task force to develop a plan for making Oakland oil independent by the year 2020. That's one example of one city. There are many others, Portland, Oregon. So do your homework. Find out who's doing what. See what excites you and join in. I can't tell you what your work should be because the range of efforts that are going to be necessary in this enormous energy transition is itself enormous. And if nothing's happening where you are, or if you see work that needs to be done that no one else is doing, guess what? It's up to you. So I look forward to joining with you in this great work, and I salute you in being here tonight to hear a difficult message. And I hope you come away with the knowledge and inspiration to help you in engaging in this fearsome but wonderful project ahead of us. Thank you very much.